Now we start our inside bus pre-trip. We have our service doors. My service doors swing freely on their hinges. The windows are not cracked or broken. The rubber molding isn't dry rotted, ripped, torn, or frayed or bubbled. The doors, windows, and rubber are securely attached. I would check my stairwell steps. I would check to make sure that they are not ripped, torn, or have any holes in it. There's nothing sticking up that would cause a student to trip, and they are securely attached to the floor with the proper screws and bolts. This is my step wall light. I would check that the lens is clean and clear, not cracked or broken. The screws and bolts are in place, and it is securely attached. I would check my handrail. Reach up and pull on the handrail. As you do that, you say, "The handrail is secure to the bus with all screws and bolts in place." I would check my first aid and body fluid cleanup kits to be full and secure. I would check my fire extinguisher to make sure that the hose is attached. It isn't dry rotted, cracked, frayed, or ripped. I'd make sure that the needle was in the green, the pin is in place, the date is up to date on the ticket, and that the entire item is secure to the bus. I would check my emergency triangles. I'd make sure that I have 3 emergency triangles and that the item was secure to the bus. Remember to ask the tester if they would like to see you put one together. They normally say no. Next, we'll sit in the driver's seat. We'll put on our seat belt. We would say that the seat belt is not ripped, torn, or frayed, and it buckles securely. We'll explain that you are making sure that all of your mirrors are adjusted properly for driving, and tell the tester you are checking the overhead mirror to be clean and clear, not cracked or broken, and that the rubber molding isn't dry rotted, cracked, ripped, or torn, and that the mirror and molding is secured to the bus. I would make sure that the driver's window slides open and slides closed. Next, we'll insert the key into the bus ignition. We'll turn the key to the on position. We'll wait for the wait to start light to turn off. While we're waiting, we'll close the service door. When the light goes off, we'll start the bus. We'll immediately tell the tester that you are watching the oil pressure gauge to make sure that it is operational and it's setting in the proper position of idle around the 25 psi of pressure. Be sure to check that the ABS light turns on and turns off promptly. Explain all the heater switches. Show movement while turning them on and off. Turn on and verbally explain what you are doing by turning on the master switch and activate the 8-way warning lights. Point to the indicator amber lights outside and inside and explain that they are working. Then open the door and activate the 8-way stopping reds and point to and indicate that the lights are working on the stop arm, outside the bus on top, and on the indicator inside the bus. You then shut the door. Explain that the lights outside can be deactivated by turning off the master switch or closing the door. Activate and deactivate all your switches on the panel to show their operation. When showing the operation of the dome lights, make sure when doing the switches that you turn on the passenger dome lights to check to see that they are working inside, and the driver dome light is working, and describe only the driver lens at the driver's seat. You gently tug on the steering wheel and explain that the steering wheel shouldn't have more than 2 inches of slack in the wheel. Make sure the steering wheel and tires are straight for the brake checks. Check the horn by pushing the horn. I will now check my oil pressure gauge. My oil pressure gauge should be at around 25 psi during idle and between 25 and 50 psi while driving. I would check my water temperature gauge. My water temperature should be between 180 and 210 degrees during operation and not to exceed 210. If it goes beyond 210 degrees, I would pull over and inform dispatch. This is my hours driven, odometer with miles driven, my RPMs, and this is my speedometer. This is my fuel gauge, and it should be between 1/2 and full. This is my voltage gauge, and it should be in the green between 12 and 14 volts. And this is my ignition. This is my gear shift lever. Actually run through the gears. Explain each gear and that the reverse buzzer is working and that it shifts freely. Indicators in the instrument panel. Check and point to the high beam indicator. Check and point to each turn signal indicators. And check and point to your hazard indicators.